This is the Blue Collar Future podcast where we talk about the future of trade work. So, today I wanted to talk about something that has been kind of popular topic lately that I've seen a lot about, mainly from being in social media and especially kind of seeing some opinions of some people that I know pretty close. And that topic is union versus non union. Now, I don't have a ton of experience with unions, and I haven't really learned much about them until recently. And I see a lot of good and bad. All you really hear about is how, the union workers are going on strike, and like just recently about how the dock workers are basically saying that they can um, shut the country down, and they wanted more pay and a bunch of like a really high pay increase. I think they wanted like 75% increase in pay or something. But a lot of people, if you've never been in a union and you haven't really investigated them very much, it's not that um, I say commonplace to know about. Here in Utah, it's a right to work state, and I did not know what that meant until recently. Obviously, like since I've been looking into unions, and basically what that means is um, you have a right to work, right to work state. But the union, basically what that means is the union presence isn't very strong here. I know some people here that are in unions that love it, and I think that they can be a good thing. But we can go into some more details about my experience and then some other people's experiences that I have known and talked to about it. I won't be naming names necessarily, and kind of what I see as the pros and cons. And I really would like to get some people on here that have a stronger opinion to talk about it, just to go over their experience. And that might be a recurring theme on this podcast. Although I think it's, after we kind of go through this, I think it's pretty obvious what the decision is to be made for you and where you're at. Um, Before we get into that, check out the podcast store with, you can get some apparel merch on there if you support the podcast and want to help support the podcast. Find some apparel and merch there. It really helps a lot. And go to the Troll Co website. Use the code Jaden10 for 10% off. I'm super excited. I've been going to be getting some of my new gear here soon. I'm excited to try the pants out, and I will let everybody know how those go. And there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. We're getting really close to being done with our house. Like I said, I think I'm going to be bringing guests on once we get done with that and moved in, because it's been taking a lot of my time up, a lot of my typically what would be interview time on the weekends and stuff. So interviews, TBD, and let's get into this union, non-union. And I hope some of my friends that I might be mentioning are on here listening to this and can give me their feedback, and then we can maybe even jump on a podcast and discuss kind of what's been going on. So my experience is obviously not union. The union presence is not strong here in Utah. I am a third generation concrete finisher. My dad started working for his uncles when he was really young and started his own business, and I work for him. So we're in a family business, and you see a lot of people online that want to throw shade at people that work for their parents and claim that that's the only reason that they succeed in a construction job without being in a union. I've seen that comment before, and I just want to kind of explain why that's kind of a flawed philosophy and go over like my experience as it relates to being in a family business, and really why a lot of people actually don't have much success working with family. So when working with family, really it's hard because personalities clash and you're not just coworkers, and it becomes not as professional in a lot of ways because there's a lot more butting heads than there normally would be on any old typical job site. Most of the time when you go work for somebody, it's kind of expected that you do what your employer says, and you kind of, follow what they say and don't really step out of the line. With family business, and I see this a lot with other people working for in their family business, there's a lot more butting heads and there's a lot more strong personality that comes through into the workforce, really, and it makes it hard. It makes it hard to work. I think we've made it work, and which is really shocking considering I have a pretty strong personality, and so does my dad, and so do my siblings that work here, and we've had some people working with us that like they just don't fit together, and there's a lot of people that butt heads and stuff, and we've made it work. There's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that absolutely cannot stand working for their parents because it just feels like another place to get told what to do. And I think this is mainly true of people that have parents that actually want them to succeed on their own instead of being underneath just riding their parents' coattails forever. My dad hasn't treated me special in any way throughout my career doing this. It's always been, what can I do? What can I help the company achieve? And am I doing what I should be doing, showing up on time, making sure I have tools, am I learning, all that type of stuff. I wasn't, all of a sudden day one making more than everybody else. My two coworkers that were working for him before I started made more money than me for a few years. And especially one coworker made more money for me for a few years before I started to learn more and take over more responsibility. And eventually he actually quit. And that's kind of how, that progression was going. My dad has always wanted to treat people fairly for what they bring to the company. Now, a lot of people's parents don't do that. I see family businesses that have both aspects. I see the side where the kids just kind of do what they want and they get paid a lot of money and don't really bring anything to the table. They might help in a roundabout way, but they don't do what they should be doing to help the job go forward. And I also see where the kids actually work and they're not the quote unquote typical boss's kid, where they actually work hard and learn and are better than everybody else on the job site. And that happens. I know more of that than I do of companies where the kids just kind of ride their parents' coattails and get handed everything. I know more people in the camp of they work hard and they put in their time and they get their experience and they know what they're doing. So from my experience, seeing these family businesses operate, I actually have seen a lot of people that have nothing to do with the family, that have just worked there a long time, that have a stable career and they get paid really well, and they've done all of it through climbing up the ranks. I can name off probably 10 different people that are doing really well for themselves, working for family businesses that are not part of the family. So get that out of the way, as it does happen, but not as often as people think. And I worry that some people see me and they think, oh yeah, he just works for his dad, doesn't actually, know what he's doing, and he doesn't actually work hard and all of that. I put in a lot of time and work and really care about how good I am at doing what I do. And also I'm putting in a lot of extra work that I'm not necessarily directly getting compensated for. I mean, take for example, all of the content creation and the social media handling that I'm doing. I don't really get compensated for that. And it's kind of just a way for me to help promote the business and I do all of that in my free time. I do all of that off the clock. And I think, you could say in a roundabout way, I get compensated for it because I make a little more money than I did previously, but it's not really directly related to that. And it's more of been from the amount of value I'm providing. Everybody on our crew gets raises and gets compensated fairly for what they do and what they bring, and they can learn and grow. I think in these scenarios, it can work out great. So that's my experience and some other people's experiences. So I've seen both. I've heard both. I've heard some people that live here that have really good experiences. They make a ton of money doing what they do for the unions or in a union. And I've also heard people in unions that have not had a good experience. I haven't heard as much here because I actually don't know as many people that live here that are in a union. But I know people that are in unions that have not had good experiences and have actually gotten better pay outside of a union, better benefits, more potential outside of a union. Not to name names, but for example, actually a close family member here. I took back what I said. I do know someone here who has had bad experience. His employer wasn't, a close family member's employer wasn't following up with what the union was, the union guidelines and compensation and pay and all that. And he had a really bad experience there for quite a long time. And this person came really highly recommended by the union, this employer. And eventually, this family member switched positions, different company. The union paid him while he was unemployed, looking for a different position. So there's some good there, and even here in Utah where the union presence isn't as strong. I can't say anything to the cement masons union here because I know there's a union presence. I really would like to hear about the union presence here in some different trades for people who are in unions. I only know a few people. I know some people that have had bad experiences in unions and found better positions outside. So all of that being said, if you followed my ramblings there, what I see as the facts is if you live in an area with a strong union presence, with a lot of strong unions, it seems to be a no-brainer to be in the union. However, it's kind of hard to be non-union in those areas anyways because there's such a strong presence that if you are a contractor and you try to be non-union, you kind of get ran off by the unions. Like you pretty much have to be a part of them, and you can't find employees because everybody wants to be in the union. If you are in a place that does not have a strong union presence, you might not get represented properly, and you might be pretty much part of an organization that is kind of pointless. And then you have all of the cons of kind of being, we'll get to the cons in a minute, but kind of being beholden to an organization and also not getting compensated what you should be. So I think this whole thing comes down to where are you at? What is the pay difference between union, non-union, and are they good unions? I know here for the concrete truck drivers, one company is union. I think the other company is non-union. People go back and forth between both of them, and people like both of them for different reasons. Typically, people like unions because they protect the employees. Some people don't like them because the organizational structure is kind of crappy and it's all based on seniority. And we'll get to that in a minute. Again, the bottom line here is if you live in an area with a strong union, it seems to be a no-brainer. And I don't even say a lot of unions. If a certain trade you want to join has a strong union, then it seems a no-brainer to join it. But there are a lot of places that have a lot of unions, and some of them don't have a strong presence, or some of them are not that great. And so you just need to be looking at the compensation and the benefits of being a part of that specific union. So I think first, now moving on from that, the pros for unions are typically, and this is the kind of the purpose of them, a guaranteed higher pay, consistent work, and stable work, and more benefits than you would get non-union. Again, the point of the union is to protect the employee. It's to ensure that the employee gets proper compensation, and they do usually get higher wages in the places where the unions are strong, and more benefits. Cons, a lot of people bring up union dues. I don't really think that's a con because usually the union dues are not that expensive. I haven't seen any reason to think that the union dues are super expensive across the board. I'd like to have some people give me their experience on that. But a lot of people use that as a con, and you are subject to the decisions of the union. A lot of these unions are, for example, if you did not want to get the vaccine back during COVID, I don't want to get too political here or care or into this whole vaccine debacle, but depending on the union you were in, they would force you to get it. There's no decision on whether or not you want it. You could go without. And I think that is true for other employers, but there's a lot of employers that didn't care. So I think it just, again, it depends on your scenario, but you're beholden to the decisions of the union. Pros and some of the cons, we'll say some of the cons for the union is it's all based on seniority, and that can be a pro and con. So you get more pay versus for how long you've been in. Kind of doesn't incentivize people to work hard and get promoted based on personal excellence, pretty much. I think you can still be compensated for better performance, but it's definitely not the basis for your improvement on the job, which can kind of suck. That's probably the main draw that I would see to a non-union job, is that you actually get compensated for being an excellent employee, learning fast, showing up on time, doing your job really well, all of that stuff. You can get compensated directly for that instead of only based on how long you've been on the job. And that being said, that decreases the individuality of people. Some of this might sound like a little bit cookie cutter stuff because I have done a little research on what people think is pros and cons. I'm kind of compiling that. Being a part of that union will that lack of individuality is due to the fact that you do not get better compensation for working harder. It's based on how long you've been there. The other major con I would see to being in a union is it makes it harder to get rid of employees that are a waste of space because they are protected by the union. But it makes it harder for employees or for employers to get rid of employees that aren't bringing anything to the company and are just basically taking up space and getting paid for it because they're getting protected. So someone that, say, makes mistakes, lazy, all that type of stuff, it makes it harder to get rid of them. And it also makes it harder to promote like I said earlier, the people that are doing better and pushing themselves for excellence. We kind of already talked about some good things about non-unions. I I don't want to sound too pro non-union or union. I think again it depends on your area. Um, Basically, the only pro I would see for non-union is being able to get promoted at a faster rate. So if you're a hustler, work hard, you're really motivated, you can get promoted faster. And that's really the main draw to being in a non-union position. And it all depends on the company that you work for too, because some employers in non-union scenarios are not good. And but that's, totally up to you as the employee to figure out. And there are people that are part of unions that are employers that are not good, because I've heard both. I've heard from both scenarios, good and bad. So again, I think it's do your research in your area based on the trade that you want to do and talk to people that have had experiences in those trades. For example, here, as far as what I've seen, I make as much money as or more money really than the average union pay for cement mason. And I have a retirement match, health insurance, company truck, fuel card, bonuses, all that stuff. So you can get good compensation in a non-union position. And before anybody says it's because my family, I've had coworkers also be in this position. Doesn't really have anything to do with that. It's just people wanting to stick around and work hard will get compensated for it in these scenarios that in these scenarios they will, if you stick around, work hard, and give it your all, you'll get compensated for it. So those are my thoughts on union versus non-union. If you were listening, reach out to me and let me know what you think. I'd like to hear everybody's feedback and then maybe even do a follow-up episode or have people on that would like to talk about this from their perspective, because I think it is really valuable, because it's a really interesting topic, because I think unions were really, really important at one point, kind of faded out in importance, and they are coming back lately. I see as a lot of people that are really gung-ho for unions and have really good experiences, and I think that they are a good thing if you are in a place where your union representation is phenomenal. I think they can be a great thing. That's all I've got. Thank you for listening if you've made it this far, and let me know what you think about this episode and share it with a friend who you think will get something out of it, and maybe this can spur a discussion, and maybe this can spur some more episodes on this topic. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.